everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Very, very special guest today. From the beginning, I always meant to have this guy on, and I finally got him here today for you guys. This is John Meadows, the Mountain Dog. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Ron. It's great to be here, so I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, I have a million questions, so I better get right to it. I have my questions, and I solicited the guys over at No Bull, and boy, if we got to all their questions, it'd be quite a night. But we'll see what happens. I want to know how this all started. How did John Meadows get into bodybuilding?
Wow, man, I wish I could tell you some crazy story, but the truth is that I used to go to the store with my grandmother, and I looked at the muscle and fitness magazines. Well, I was going there originally to look at the pro wrestling magazines. I was a big Road Warriors guy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Hawk and Animal were my guys. My entire room was Hawk and Animal. And so I'm going there to look at the pro wrestling magazines, and I saw Muscle and Fitness, and this is when I was 12 years old, and I opened it up, and literally, it was divine intervention. It was like, that's what I want to look like. Wow. I want to look like that. And it wasn't like I was picked on or I was trying to impress the girls. I just really instantaneously wanted to be a bodybuilder. And that was 1984, probably when I was looking at the first magazine, and Lee Haney had just won his first Mr. Olympia, and Albert Beckles was really good back then. Rich Gaspari had just come on the national scene. He was probably 20 years old, 21 years old. He was really good. So Mike Christian, all those guys. I remember, all the guys back then. Tom Platz was good back then. Sergio Oliva was good. Even Tony Pearson was doing really good. I just had a really long, fun talk with Tony Pearson out in Vegas a couple weeks ago. It was pretty cool. So, yeah, I literally, Ron, just looked at the magazines and said, that's what I want to look like.
So how did you figure out I need to go to the gym and lift weights and eat a lot of food to look like that? How did you learn what it took to actually get these muscles?
Well, the muscle magazines were my Bible. That's where I got all my instruction from. Yeah. I would just read. My favorite section was the kinesiology section. You'd see somebody doing a pull down. It'd have the little collar coding. Well, here's the teres minor and major, and here's the latissimus dorsi. And that was literally my favorite part. So I would always go to that part first. I remember I knew all the hamstring muscles, and I was 14 years old, which was kind of crazy. I'm walking around going, yeah, I'm going to get my semitendinosus big, right? So, but it was, and I looked at all the routines they did, and I tried to do them all. It had, of course, Lee Haney's back routine was popular, and you had, Bob Paris was good back then. Mike Christian had his arm routines in there, but I basically looked at that magazine as my instructional guide. So whatever it said to do is what I did. I just tried to literally copy everything I read in that magazine.
Now, I know you started competing very young. How young were you? And what was the switch that flipped you and said, I got to get up there and compete too?
It was 1985 was my first show when I was 13. Ooh. And what happened was at the back of Muscle and Fitness magazine, and I think Flex magazine, they had a contest listing. And you could see where all the contests were being held. And they had one at a place called Miami Trace High School, which was about 15 minutes from where I lived. Okay. So I said, I'm going to go to that. And I went to that, and, oh, man, I walked into that little high school auditorium, and I saw the bodybuilders, and I was like, man, this is so cool. And I saw a guy guest posing, and he looked like a freakazoid to me. He was massive. Well, turns out the guy had placed in the top 3 or 4 at the junior nationals, and he was actually a lightweight. This guy was 165, 170 pounds. He was in the off season. But to me, as a 12 or 13-year-old, I saw this guy, and I was like, man, this guy's a freak. And so I said, well, I want to do a contest. So back then, Ron, we had a lot of teenage classes in the shows. We had an age 13 to 17 class, and we had an age 18 to 19 class, and the winner of each class would compete for the overall. So all these shows had age 13 to 17. So when I turned 13, there was a show I believe it's in Lancaster, Ohio, which ironically is pretty close to where I live now. And I got in it. There was 4 guys, 4 teenagers in the 13 to 17 class. I got dead last. I got 4th. Posed the Lunatic Fringe from Red Rider, the
Yep.
song from Vision Quest.
Yep.
Remember Vision Quest, how big it was back then?
Matt, what's his name? Was Matt Modine, the wrestling
Yeah,
Modine.
yeah. Remember Loudon Swain?
Of course.
But so I did that contest and I got last place. I didn't care though. I loved it. I was like, man, this is awesome. I'm going to compete again when I turn 14. And actually, I competed in a Teenage Mr. Cincinnati, which was the biggest show in Ohio back then. And there were 9 guys in that class, and I got 8th. And I was ecstatic that I beat somebody. I mean, you would have thought I just won the Mr. Olympia. I got 8th out of 9. And back then they gave you the score sheets, and I was like, yes, I beat somebody. And I beat a 16-year-old kid. His name was Scott Hack. I still remember it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, pretty cool, though.
Did you also get into powerlifting? I know you trained at Westside for a time, didn't you?
Yeah, what I did was I went to a college called Wilmington College, which was in Southern Ohio, for 3 years. And honestly, man, I just got lazy, and I knew I needed to transfer schools or I was in danger of dropping out. I mean, I went from Dean's List to maybe B average, and I was down to C average, and I was to the point where I wasn't even going to classes. I would just go and take my tests. I was spending a lot of time in the weight room
Right.
and a lot of time drinking beer.
Okay.
So I transferred to Capital University. Now, I did have an ulterior motive. It was pretty close to the World Gym here on East Livingston. And this is where I wanted to train. I had my football coach in high school actually used to drive me up to Columbus, which was an hour away from my hometown,
Wow.
to take me to this World Gym. And I had made some friends with the big bodybuilders here, the big guys, and they had kind of taken me under their wing. So through the years, I was coming up on the weekends to this gym anyway, but I was eventually like, you know what, I can't do it at Wilmington anymore. I'm skipping classes. I'm going to go to Capital. And when I went to Capital, I actually went to classes, and I actually went to the gym, since they were so close. So that kind of reinvigorated me. And while I was there, I met a guy who trained at Westside Barbell. A guy's name was Daryl Mayo. Daryl's one of my best friends to this day. And Daryl was like, if you really, my legs were really big back then, Ron, but I had no upper body. So Daryl was like, you need to go over Westside Barbell. Louie will put some muscle on you. And I was like, cool, because that's pretty strong. I was squatting 700, it was raw. I didn't call it raw back then. It was just you squatted 700. Now you got to say if it's raw or if it's with this or if it's with that.
Right.
But, I was a strong squatter. And so I went to Westside, and Mike Francois came over shortly after. This is when Mike put on a lot of weight and ended up winning the Arnold Classic. And Mike and I were the 2 bodybuilders over there. So we got to train with Chuck Vogelpool and all those guys and Dave Tate. And, of course, Dave Tate's one of my best friends now. And Chuck Vogelpool is, without a doubt, the biggest animal I've ever seen in the gym. I've never seen anybody quite like Chuck. Like, he's just on another level mentally and physically. So I loved it over there. I really had a good time. I trained over there for a couple of years, actually.
Okay. What I definitely want to talk about is, there's so many characters that I talk to. I can't call them characters. Guys and girls that they turn pro very, very quickly, and it kind of happens very fast for them. But you're sort of the guy that a lot of us looked up to as someone who just would not give up, and someone who kept putting in the work year after year. So let me enlighten some people who might not know this whole story. Your first attempt at a pro card, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these facts, was a 1999 USA Championships. Is that right?
No.
No.
You're close, though. You're close. It was 1998 at the Nationals. I competed as a light heavyweight, and I got smoked. And then I came back in 99 as a heavyweight at the USA, and I got 4th.
Yeah, so 4th place. It looks, when you're in the top 4 at a national level show, you're pretty close.
Especially back then.
Right, especially back then. So you would think. But it didn't happen that quickly for you.
No.
It didn't happen until I guess this would be the 17th attempt when you won the 2015 Team Universe Masters overall. So I guess what I want to ask, first of all, is how did you stay motivated? How did you prevent being discouraged? So many people would have quit halfway through that journey, and you just kept going and going and got better and better and better, even though it had to be disheartening a lot of times. I'm sure it was close, and you just didn't get the nod, and you had to feel like giving up so many times along the way. So, tell me how you handled all that.
Well, I think I did retire a few times, and that was short-lived, obviously. Well, I tell you what, I in 2004, I had got fourth at the Mr. North America. I really felt like I should have won my class. Lionel Brown got third, and Jerome Ferguson got second, and Sebastian Zone, a real nice kid, got first. And that was the first time I thought, you know what, I can compete with these guys. Unfortunately, what happened after that is I got real sick in 2005.
That's right.
And that's when I lost my colon. So I had given up on pro aspirations at that point. And what I wanted to do, Ron, was just kind of, I know this sounds corny, but just kind of go out on my own terms.
Yeah.
And so I was told, you're not going to have a normal diet. You're not going to be able to train hard again. You're certainly not going to be able to compete again. Now, the one guy who really believed in me from a medical perspective was Dr. Serrano. He said, that's bull, John. You can come back from this. You're going to have some scarring on your stomach that probably won't be too nice, but physically you will be able to come back from this. So I had a lot of setbacks. I ended up having a lot of surgeries, a lot of scar tissue, and it really impacted my midsection. I had so much nerve damage, I didn't really have any abdominal strength, and not only could I not develop them, I couldn't hold them in.
Yeah.
Plus I had the scarring on top of it.
Right.
So it wasn't until years later that I could even do a sit-up. I mean, Ron, I don't think I could literally do a sit-up, and I want to say until 2011 or 12.
Wow.
And the numbness and tingling didn't, from my recollection, it didn't go away until 6 months before that Team Universe that I won.
Wow.
When it went away, I could start feeling my abs. I had a good feeling. I was like, okay, now, because before I had my surgeries, I had good abs. I had very good abs.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a wide waist and I was blocky, but I wasn't distended, and I had very sharp abs. I had very sharp obliques. But when that happened, I thought, okay, now it's not going to look good, but it might not be that bad.
Right.
So if I can just dominate with size and condition, I might have a chance.
Right.
So I continue to plug away. Now in 2012, I got second place. 2013, I think I might have got second place. Just a lot of second places.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I deserved to win any of those. I never walked away from that and said I got screwed. I walked away from that and said, I'm close, man. This is the journey. I'm close. Give it another shot. And then I remember, Ron, I was very strategic about it. I said, you know what? I can hang with any heavyweight in the country.
Yeah.
And I'm going to prove it to myself, and I'm going to go do the Nationals. I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was 2014 I went and did the Nationals.
Yes.
And I said, I'm going to be in the first call-out Nationals, and what I'm going to do is there's probably going to be a pretty body that gets placed ahead of me.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in that first call-out, and then when I come back to the Team U, they're going to say, that's the guy who was in first call-out at Nationals. So I'm going to change their perception of me as not being a good Masters competitor, but being a good competitor. Because I don't feel like I was just a good Masters competitor. I felt like I was a good competitor, period, no matter what show I did.
Right.
So I went to the Nationals, and it was loaded, and I did make the first call-out. So that was a victory for me.
Yeah.
And I said, now when I show up at Team U, they're going to say, that's the guy that was in the first call-out Nationals. He's no joke. He's legit.
Right.
So I went to the Team U. I got first place in the 35 and the 40, perfect scores and everything.
Yep.
And so it all worked out. But there was a definite plan there, I was definitely doing things for a reason. People were like, why do you want to do that? And I said, you know what, there's a small part of me, too, that wants to show these young guys that this old guy can hang right with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I got to back up because I didn't have any I forgot about the whole colon thing. That's what a crappy journalist I am. But so you have no colon. That's correct.
Correct. None. Zero.
So the food, how does that work? I mean, does your food go through you much faster?
Much faster. So let me give you just a really quick lesson here.
Yeah.
Food goes into your small intestine, and then the nutrients are absorbed, and then it goes into your colon.
Yeah.
Your colon is what removes water, and kind of thickens your stool, and then food exits out of your body through your rectum.
Yeah.
So I don't have the middleman, we'll call it. So I just have the small intestine connected directly to the rectum.
Yeah.
So the lesson for me is I can still eat anything I want, but I got to know where the bathrooms are, because the transit time for food to go through my body is really fast.
Okay. But you never had to wear a bag, a colostomy bag or anything like that?
No, I didn't have a colostomy. What I had an ileostomy. After my very first emergency surgery,
yeah.
when they removed my entire colon, they gave me a temporary ileostomy, which means the ileum, which is part of your small intestine, actually goes right through your skin, and there's a bag, and the waste empties into the bag.
Yeah. I
had that for 14 weeks, and then they went in to connect that to my rectum. They call it a reconnect.
Yeah.
The problem was the first, I had so much damage and just chaos from the first surgery that I had some scar tissue develop internally, and then I had a blockage where food couldn't go through me. So then they did a third surgery 10 days later, and then I had two surgeries so close that then I got an infection deep intra-abdominally. I had two really big infections. So then I had tubes going into my stomach that were coming out of me, and that were Velcro to these bags on the side of my leg. I mean, it sucked, man. It was really, really rough. And I remember Christmas that year in 2005. This was in December, and the surgery happened right when I got back from doing the Mr. USA, by the way. But I remember at the family gathering, we were all sitting around playing poker. We love to play poker, and I remember just sitting there in pain because every time I'd move, those tubes would like yank on me internally.
Oof.
So it wasn't a fun time, but you know what? We got through it.
All right, let's talk about happier times. So, you turned pro in 2015, and then you went right into pro shows that year. I think the Tampa was maybe a month later, if that was your first pro show. Not even, right?
Well, what happened was I went to do Vancouver, and then Tampa, and then San Antonio.
Okay.
I only had 3 shows to qualify for the Olympia, and I did the Vancouver, and that was my first experience of trying to make 212, and I blew it. I royally blew it. I still to this day feel like I might have won that if I could have. But what I did was I starved myself, and I didn't drink any water, and I just flat out, I was so weak before prejudging, I couldn't carb back up. I was so weak, I just laid in bed. And I ended up getting 5th place, and it was disappointing. But what happened after that was the next Tuesday when I got back and had some food in me, I looked like $1 million. And I thought, okay, let's just go give Tampa a shot. Let's just give it a shot. There were a lot of guys that had been to Mr. Olympia in that Tampa show. I want to say there were 3 guys that had been in the Mr. Olympia the previous year.
Yeah.
It was a very deep lineup, and I got 3rd.
Yeah.
I filled out really good for that show. The night after I weighed in, it was really hard to make weight, and that's the one where my buddy Scott Stevenson made sure I didn't die. But I went to the sauna I was in a sauna for I want to say 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
And I weighed in, and I was 214, and Steve Weinberger was like, "You're too heavy, John." And I said, "Okay, well, how much time do I have?" And he said, "You got 1 hour."
Oh, my God.
So I ran out. I basically said to Scott, "Come on, man." And I basically jogged out of the weigh-in, and there was a Nebbia clothing booth
Yes.
right there. And I said, "Give me the heaviest sweatpants and the heaviest sweatshirt you got."
Wow.
And he was like, "Well, I'll make you a deal." I'm like, "No, just give it to me. I need it now. I don't care how much it costs."
Yeah.
So he gave me the sweatshirt and the sweatpants. I ran back into the sauna with Scott, and the whole time I was laying there with the sweatpants on and towels wrapped around me like a mummy, Scott was getting water and pouring it on the coals.
Yeah.
So they get hotter and hotter and hotter.
Gosh.
And so I waited until there was about 10 minutes left, and I got up, and the scale said 212, and I ran down there to weigh in, and they were packing up the scale. They were like, "Oh, we didn't think you were coming back."
Oh, man.
So he put the scale back down, and I weighed 211.9.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, you're cool." And then the nice thing was it was at like 3 o'clock, so I could eat all afternoon. I ate 2 or 3 boxes of one of those light fruit bars I always ate. Those little light fruit bars. They're made of oatmeal.
I know what you mean.
They're real light. Like you eat 2 of them, and there's 25 grams of carbs and it's 2 bites, but it's just basically fruit paste.
Right.
I ate 2 boxes of those things. I ate so much you wouldn't believe it, Ron. I had probably, I think it was 2,500 grams of carbs after weigh-in before I went to bed.
Holy moly.
So Kenny Wallach, comes to see me. Kenny is my posing coach, and he comes to see me at 6:30 in the morning. He's like, yeah, everything's good, but I can tell you just ate. I said, Kenny, I've been eating all night, man. And I said, don't worry, I'm going to let it digest, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I didn't eat anymore. I ate a little bit after that, but I didn't pound food. Then I backed off, and everything just tightened up perfect, man. Everything just tightened up real well. I ended up getting third.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very, very good finish for me. And then I realized if I got another third, I would qualify for the Mr. Olympia. So I went to San Antonio.
Yep.
By that point, my body was really burned out. And Scott came with me again, and we actually went up on the roof of the hotel in San Antonio in August with all my sweat clothes on.
Goodness.
I couldn't even, that was worse than a sauna. So then I came back down, and Scott turned his bathroom into a sauna. He put towels underneath, turned all the hot water on.
Oh, my goodness.
I go down to weigh in, and I weighed in at 212.6.
Oh.
And I'm looking at Steve like, come on, man, cut me some slack. And he's like, no, you're over. And I was like, what? And I hadn't eaten. There was nothing in my stomach. There was. I had sweat everything out of me. There was nothing in my stomach. Steve goes, go use the bathroom and you'll probably make it.
Yeah.
So I went to the bathroom. Nothing happened because there's nothing in me.
Yeah.
So I came back out a half hour later and I said, all right, I'll weigh in again. And he said, blow all your air out and let's just hope it hits. So I literally blew all the air out I could. I stepped real easy onto the scale and it hit 212.0 exactly.
Wow.
And then I stepped off, and I was like, whew. But I think by that point, Ron, I had been under 4% body fat for 12 weeks at that point.
Yeah. At
that point, my body was shot, and I ended up getting 5th place, which I was 2 points from qualifying for the Olympia, which would have been a great story.
Sure.
But at that point, man, I was just holding on for dear life.
I mean, it's still a great story because, you had all those close calls where, theoretically you weren't quite good enough to be a pro all those years. But then the minute you got your pro card, you're 3rd, 5th, 5th in your first 3 pro shows, which that's very rare. Obviously, we have a lot of pros who they don't do anything as a pro for a long time, if ever. Yeah. So it had to feel good in that sense. It was kind of like, I really am that good, people. See?
Well, it was good. A lot of my clients are pros, and like Fuad and Ken Jackson and Doug Dale, those guys were all like, John, I'm telling you, you're as good as these other pros are. Like, you can place in a pro show. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I can't even win an amateur show, man. But after I did that, they were like, see, I told you you could play with these guys. Yeah. So it was a good feeling.
You're another thing people respect about you is we'll get into the training knowledge and everything else, but it's the fact that you actually left a very safe, very well-paying job in finance world, I believe it was. What kind of job did you have?
I was a VP at JP Morgan Chase, and I ran retail projects, and these were huge projects. I don't know if you remember back years ago, but JP Morgan Chase was they combined with Bank One. They had a merger, and then they acquired WAMU, Washington Mutual. So they ended up having a branch network of 5,000 branches. And just to give you an example of what I did, I had a team of people, probably 30 or 40 people, that went out and trained the entire teller staff and all the branches and implemented the new technology. I still kind of geek out about this stuff. So if you go into a branch in a bank at JP Morgan Chase, they drop your check in that scanner. It goes around, it reads the microline on the check. It captures the image. Yeah. Then they take those images. This is technology where they could take the image and settle and clear with other banks and the Fed with images. Well, that project, we were light years ahead of all the other banking institutions. Up to that point, they were doing it with paper. So they would take, if you went into the bank, Ron, and you deposit a check, they would actually send your physical check to clear to these other places. Well, we had a project where we could do it electronically. So if you think about the cost savings of all of the back offices and all the paper we had to store and send. It eliminated all that.
Wow.
That's as an example. This was the biggest project at the entire corporation, and these were the kinds of projects I ran.
So, what kind of work were you doing in our industry that led you away from that? And how hard a decision was it for you to leave that banking industry into something that's not quite as safe, quote unquote, maybe?
Yeah, well, I had always, of course, I'd always loved bodybuilding, and I was always coaching people. And even when I was working at the bank, I had a really big roster of clients. It had just got to the point, Ron, where honestly I just had no life. I just worked nonstop. I literally just worked nonstop from the time I got up till the time I went to bed. And then we had kids. We had our twins.
Yeah.
And a couple of years goes by, and I'm like, you know what, man? I don't want to be that dad that missed his kids growing up. And the other thing is I didn't feel like I was doing as good of a job coaching as I could because I was spending so much time at the bank. Yeah. And I didn't feel like I was doing as good of a job at the bank as I could because I was spending so much time coaching. It was like, I'm doing okay at both of these, but I know I can do better if I just focus on something.
Right.
So I just thought about it logically, and I thought, you know what, I can always come back to the banking world. I've got a great reputation. I have a really good background now that I've got the experience that I have.
Yeah.
But your time in this industry is limited, and I felt like I need to make a move now or nobody's even going to know who John Meadows even is. So I felt like this is the time to make it happen. So then I had to really think, Ron, about what is it that makes me nervous? What is it that's going to scare me, that's going to occupy my thoughts and it'll hold me back? And it was really, with a family, it was really a fear of losing that salary, benefits, insurance, my family not having a place to stay.
Yeah.
So what I did was, as I was coaching people and working at the bank, I lived a very meager lifestyle. And my wife and I were not big spenders, and we saved and saved and saved. And I have no shame in telling this story. I saved $200,000. And I owed $198,000 on my house. So I walked into the bank and I wired $198,000 to Wells Fargo.
Wow.
I walked out of the bank with $2,000 to my name.
Yeah.
But I had the house free and clear, and I knew my family would have some place to stay. And that was what I needed to do. That took all the worry out. And then I could really focus on coaching, really focus on building this business, and that's what happened.
So, I'm sure you're just as busy now as ever. I mean, if you
more so.
More so. I mean, typically you must, I can't even fathom, 12, 16 hours a day do you devote probably all these different projects you have going?
Easy, but I still make time for my family. But there is a lot going on. I still do coaching. I coached, I want to say maybe 10 guys competing last year, and I want to say 4 of them got their pro card. I don't have time for a lot of coaching, but I work with Ivana. Ivana was the most improved IFBB female this year. Yep. So I keep a smaller network of people because I love coaching. Yeah. I don't love coaching 100 or 200 people, though, just to be honest with you. I love coaching a smaller number where it's more almost like a family, Right. And of course, Granite Supplements I'm not the face man. Like, people are like, you're just the face of the business, right? I'm like, no, I own it. It's my company.
Oh, okay.
And I'm involved in all the operations. Like, I'm involved with everything. I don't do everything, but I'm involved with everything. I'm involved with, the manufacturers and labels and the ingredients and the retailers. I mean, you see me traveling the country visiting retailers and new products. I mean, the marketing strategy. I'm involved in all of that. Yep. So it's very, very time intensive. Very time intensive.
And you're constantly updating mountaindogdiet.com. It's a subscription website, right?
Constantly. I mean, I have so much content on there. It's unbelievable. And what I did on there too, which I always thought was pretty cool, was like when I work with clients, I put their diets on there, and as we adjust them, I put them on there so people can see. So if somebody gets on there, they could see like Sean Clarita's diet when I coached him. They could see Fouad's diet. They can see different people that I coached. Yeah. They can see their diets that I did with them. Yeah. I always thought it'd be pretty cool because there is no blanket diet that's perfect for all of us. So I never felt like, I can't give away my big secret, because there's no real big secret. Everybody's a little different. I wanted people to have insight into seeing what happened. And then I have workouts on there. I've probably got over 100 workouts on there. I've probably got, 50 awesome articles on nutrition. I've probably got 50 awesome articles on training. I've got the seminars that I did in Scotland and Ireland and I don't know if I have the Australian one, but Canada, all the seminars that I've done across the world. So there's a lot of content, a lot of stuff on there, and that takes a lot of work too.
Bet. All right, I'm going to start with the questions, and I don't think we're going to get to all of them, people. I'm very sorry if I don't get to your question with John, but we're going to get right into it. So my buddy the Goon, he's going to lead off. What are the advantages of EAAs over BCAAs? A lot of talk now about essential amino acids being better to use than branched chains.
Well, okay, so how did BCAAs even become so relevant, so important? That's all centered around initiating protein synthesis, okay? So you have this protein sensor in your body called mTOR, and it basically can tell if you've got extra calories coming in, extra protein and all that, and it can determine, your metabolism and cellular growth and all those things. And the amino acid that really drives that is leucine. So people all of a sudden jumped on this bandwagon and said, oh, it's got leucine in it, it turns on protein synthesis. And muscle growth really comes down to that equation. You got muscle protein synthesis and muscle protein breakdown.
Yep.
And logically, you got to have more synthesis than breakdown in order to accumulate more tissue. So people just assumed, oh, well, if I take leucine, I got all this protein synthesis going. But here's the thing, two things really. Just because you turn the car on doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. It turns on protein synthesis, but it doesn't mean it's going to sustain it. And then you have to look at actual muscle tissue. You need all 9 of the essential amino acids to actually build muscle tissue. It's called substrate. So you need the raw materials to actually build muscle. You can take all the BCAAs you want, but you're not going to build muscle from it. And BCAAs are a part of EAAs. EAAs are the 3 BCAAs plus the other additional essential aminos that your body can't make.
Right.
So it just, the science on BCAAs is overhyped, and that's just my opinion. A lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people will talk about the effects on muscle protein breakdown and this and that, but in my opinion, it makes sense to just go ahead and use an EAA so you have all the substrates you need to maintain protein synthesis and actually gain new muscle.
Okay, cool. Biggest mistake you ever made in one of your own preps, and biggest mistake you ever made in someone else's prep, if you want to go there. You don't have to give names, obviously.
Oh, that's a long list of mistakes I made.
Okay.
I think the biggest mistake I made was in 2001 at the USA. I was in great shape 3 weeks out, and I just wanted a little extra. I did have a coach join me at 3 weeks out, but I'm not going to blame it on him. It was 100% my responsibility. So I cut all my carbohydrates out, and I doubled my cardio in order to get that final little bit of crispness, and all it did was eat up muscle. So I ended up losing a lot of muscle, and then the last couple of days I tried to eat a bunch to kind of get it back.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, when the muscle's gone, it's not coming right back.
No.
The only thing that got bigger was my belly.
Yep.
So if you go look at pictures of the 2011 USA, you'll see my belly is big, and it's because I was ready to compete. I was in great shape 3 weeks out, and then I completely ruined it. I went overboard, and then I tried to load real hard, and I just looked awful. That comes to my mind as one of the dumbest things I've ever done. In terms of client, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes there too. I think probably there's been, a time or two where I just didn't push somebody hard enough. There's some people that I push really hard, but there's probably been a time or two where I just didn't push the calories down enough.
Yeah.
Inevitably with a lot of people, Ron, you just got to push their calories down really hard.
Right.
And I think sometimes, we hear so much about if you're a bad coach, if you take calories down too low. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
And I think I probably got a little bit too wrapped up in worrying about if I was being a good coach and bad coach, and when I should have probably taken a guy's calories down to 2,500, and instead I left it at 3,000 or 3,200. I did a real nice job with Fuad one year. He won a couple shows, and then he got second in Florida. And we had Fuad's calories down to like 2,400, and he's a big dude.
There he is.
He's a big dude. But that's what it took, and that's how he won. You look at Dugdale. Mark has won shows at 2,200 calories. When I was ready for the Arnold Classic last year, I think I was in pretty good condition. I was down to 2,300 calories. So I think probably just not pushing down calories enough has hurt a couple preps that I did back, a couple years ago.
So I could ask you, I've started doing a little bit of coaching, and you've been doing it for a very long time. Do you ever feel guilty or like that you're going to put someone through a lot of suffering if you take their calories down too low, even though it's probably what they need to do, but they're just going to be hating life for a few weeks there?
No, I don't. I don't feel one bit guilty about it. What I worry about is I just want to do the right thing. Am I making the right decision?
Okay.
I worry more about that. It's if I taking their calories too low, am I making a mistake? But I don't worry about someone suffering, because in order to get into supreme condition, you just have to suffer some, man. There's no way around it. Yeah. A lot of people, I see these posts all the time about people saying you should never suffer on your diet, it shouldn't be that bad. I'm not from that school. Yeah. Inevitably when you get in sub 4% body fat for a male, you're going to be hurting a little bit. And I don't go low carbs. But you know what, Ron? It doesn't matter. I'm still miserable the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I'm eating 300 grams of carbs, but I still feel like death,
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't, a lot of times it has nothing to do with the carbs and your macronutrients. It's just where your body is at that point in time.
Right. Well, you're known for your condition. That's one thing that you've always been spectacular at, is that grainy, shredded, you look like beef jerky, basically. And I don't think any human being has ever looked like that without a good amount of suffering.
It hurts, man. Like the prep I did for the Arnold Classic was the hardest one I've ever done in my life. It seemed like all my meals were egg whites and low sugar ketchup, and then I'd have my intra-workout drink. Like literally, it seemed like that's all I was eating. Wow. And it was rough.
All right, so those mistake questions, I want to give him credit. Guru Hansa, George UK asked 3 questions. I'm only going to ask 1. What does a true Scotsman wear under his kilt? Because he's apparently seen you wearing kilts.
Well, I guess you're supposed to go commando, but when I did my seminar in Scotland, I didn't do that. I actually wore underwear.
Yeah, come on. This is 2017. We got to wear underwear.
That's right.
Big Mike Cox, who's a native Ohio guy from Cleveland. Yep. Other than yourself, who's the best bodybuilder to come out of Ohio, in your opinion?
Oh, Mike Francois.
Yeah, that's right?
Yeah, now there's been a lot of other ones, though. Do you remember Franco Santoriello?
Of course I don't remember Franco.
Franco was good.
He was him New Jersey, though. I consider him a Jersey guy.
Well, I just knew him from Perillo's. In 1990, 91, and 92, remember when I told you I was going to Wilmington College?
Yeah.
Wilmington is close to Cincinnati, and Perillo had his performance center there.
Yeah.
So I'm a 19, 20, 21-year-old, and I went to Perillo's. That's where I actually met my first coach. And Santoriello was going there. A guy named Larry Dufik, who had won the Mr. Czechoslovakia and the Mr. France, was going there. There were some really good bodybuilders there. But, Dave Lieberman was a good bodybuilder. We've had some good ones. I've had a hand in some of them. We've had some pros, people that won their pro card here recently, and, Walter Martin. Walter actually, ironically, was a client of mine. When I won mine, he actually got second to me, and he got his pro card too, because they'd already given me one in the other class.
Right.
So that was pretty cool. I was happy for Walter. He's from here. Joe Thomas, longtime national competitor, real good guy here. I had a hand. I was coaching him when he won his pro card at the Team U as well. So, but Mike Francois, unquestionably the baddest dude from around here.
Okay, cool. Mac, I'm going to sort of summarize this question. When do you plan on competing again? His first question he wanted to know, when you don't place as well as you want to, how do you deal with that? And what are your current plans to compete again?
I don't have any current plans. Right now I'm really focused on business, and I'm still training very, very hard. I'm still in good shape. I maintain about 225 to 228 roughly, which is exactly my off-season weight, and I compete at 225 now.
Yeah.
But I don't have any plans right now. Right now, I'm just trying to do things with my family and work my granite business. And how do I handle low placings? It can be, I'm not going to sit and cry about it because I've got a good life. And at the end of the day, nobody remembers whether you got fourth or fifth or sixth. They just remember the kind of person you are. But I have had shows, like I went down to Charlotte last year and I got sixth place. And, I talked to one of the judges and he said, well, I had you in a clear third. I don't see how anybody could have had you lower than three. That was frustrating because everybody there knew. The Arnold, I was obviously disappointed. I had people placed ahead of me that I didn't feel like should have been, just being honest.
Right.
But I don't lose any sleep over it because there's probably been times when I placed ahead of people that I shouldn't have. I remember being in shows and I placed high and I thought, man, I don't think I should have placed that high. It all evens out, Yeah. At the end of the day, all the competitors were trying hard. So if they place high, good for them. If they place low, I've been there. I know how it feels. So I just I always tell people I have a 24-hour rule. You can be mad, sad, you can cry about it for 24 hours. But after that, it's time to move on. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
That's a good rule. All right, well, that just gave me a question because I've always been in awe watching your progress pics because it seems to me like you're always pretty damn close to contest condition all year round. So I want to know, is that intentional? Are you like totally strict eating and doing cardio all year? Or are you just naturally a lean person? You
haven't been watching my Instagram, have you?
Nah, not lately. I'm sorry.
Every morning I go out to eat breakfast. I have, French toast or pancakes. I have my 2 eggs.
Okay, I haven't seen a lot of the posts with a lot of pancake. I know you're famous for pancake eating. Yeah.
Honestly, Ron, I just eat whatever. I don't really follow a diet, but I train really hard.
Right.
I probably have 100 grams of protein a day. It's weird, man. It's like as I've gotten older, the nutrition part doesn't seem to be as important. If I ate the way I do now through the years, I never would have gained any muscle.
Wow.
But what I found is it's just very easy for me to maintain muscle as long as I'm training hard. And I do train hard. I train very hard.
That I know.
As long as I'm doing that, I don't have a big appetite either. I hate to be full. I don't like that feeling. I hate to be distended and bloated. I like for my stomach to feel nice and tight and tucked in. So I don't really follow much of a diet. I'm very big on nutrition around training, which I know a lot of people think is hogwash, but I'm 100% for it. Yep. I'm very big on what you eat and drink around training. I think that's very important. But beyond that, man, like every night my wife she'll make like nachos with beef, or she'll make tacos with beef, or she makes chicken quesadillas. But other than that, I go out, eat my breakfast. I have my peri-workout stuff. I may go over to the yogurt shop, get a frozen yogurt, come home, work. Mary makes me some quesadillas, and then I go to bed. I might eat a bowl of cereal and then go to bed. So it's pretty. People who know me and that are around me are like, I can't believe you eat like that, man. But the truth is I'm staying lean because my calories are low, because I don't eat much. Just the fact that I don't eat much keeps me in shape. It's not that I don't think I have a super metabolism. I just think that at the end of the day, being in a caloric surplus or a deficit has more to impact your body fat than anything else.
All right. Okay.
And then as long as you're feeding your muscles and doing the nutrition around training so that you can train hard and recover, I think you got most of your bases covered.
So am I correct in assuming you don't do cardio for your prep?
I've done cardio for some preps. I didn't do any this year. For the Arnold, I did a ton of it. The year I won the pro card, I did a little bit of walking in the mornings. I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Okay. If I'm not trying to make 212, I never do it. If I'm trying to make 212, then I usually do it.
Yeah. Well, so I guess that should be a question. I'll just have one more reader question, but 212 seems to be a real struggle for you to get to. Have you ever thought about just trying to get a little bit bigger and just forget about the 212 and compete anywhere from 225 to 240?
Well, I did the California Pro and the show in Missouri, Chad Nichols show. By the way, Chad Nichols is a phenomenal promoter, man. He really took good care of us. Best promoter in the IFBB. Yeah. I did the open classes, and I was at 225 for both those shows. I was 225. The one I did in California, I was a little bit off. I was having some weird digestion issues that came out of nowhere, and then they went away. But the show I did in Kansas City, I really liked the way I looked. If you look up some pictures of me when I did that show this year, I think that pretty much the people would say that was what the best look I've ever had. That was a sheer 225.
Okay, cool. I guess I'm going to make this the last one because I know you're so into the comics. Bully God asks, if you could be any Marvel character, who would it be and why?
Oh man! Oh, I should show you my office here. I've got.
I see the X-Men poster right behind you.
Okay, so this. Let me see if I can do this. Let me unplug this. Okay. Can you see?
You're locking up on me.
Okay, so can you see this? That poster?
Yeah, that we could see.
That is signed by Bryan Singer. Wow. That is
the director.
Yeah, he signed that, and it says, "John Mountain Dog Meadows, you are a living sentinel. All the best, Bryan Singer." He actually sent that to me.
Wow.
And right here is a Galactus poster of me and Galactus that a friend of mine made for me. And these right here, see those Wolverine claws?
Yes.
Those were actually used by Wolverine in one of the movies. They used a bunch of those claws.
Oh my goodness.
Let me show you this. All right, I gotta grab them. Oh, here we go.
Wow. Holy moly. Yeah. Is that from a movie too? Oh,
yeah, that's from the movie.
Show.
I mean, they used a bunch of those.
Wow.
But that was from the movie. So, okay, so this bald-headed guy here, that's the Watcher. I like him. This is Thanos. I got the Red Hulk right there.
Oh, yeah.
I got all kinds of them down here, man. So who would I be? Probably Galactus, because he could actually eat worlds. He could eat a whole world.
And I think you would probably be the only one that knows. Not many people realize the Hulk was red in the comics, right?
Well, there was multiple variations of the Hulk. The Red Hulk is actually a different guy who actually was very powerful too. But the Green Hulk or the regular Hulk, they're two different characters.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so where can people learn more? It's mountaindogdiet.com is the website, correct?
Yeah, that's the website, and I do a lot with my Instagram, which is Mountain Dog One, and I am working really hard on my YouTube. I put out a video. I want to say the last 80 days, I've put a video out every single day on YouTube. So I'm very, very active in social media, and I'm working really hard.
What is that YouTube channel?
It's Mountain Dog One.
Mountain Dog One. Same as
Instagram. Yeah. I'm cranking out content on there. You know, a lot of people like to complain about how, you know, the information on Instagram and YouTube is bad. And honestly, a lot of it is, Ron, but my opinion is rather than sitting and complaining about it, I'm going to go out and do something good myself. And it's hard because what gets you a lot of followers is many times just a gimmick.
Yeah. You
know, you just scream all the time, or, you know, it's basically the YouTube crowd is kind of gimmick driven.
Yeah, it is.
So I've gained, for example, 25,000 subscribers in the last 2 months, but every day, man, I'm working hard on it. In my Instagram, I mean, people see my numbers and they're like, that's really good. But I'm like, but it's taken so much work because I don't really have a gimmick. Yeah. I don't have a gimmick. I just provide information, you know?
Well, so there's a tremendous need for that too, obviously.
You know, so, but yeah, that's where you can reach me.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone because I've learned a lot from things in your videos, things that you've written, interviews with you. You know, you're a wealth of information. You're not just some guy with a physique that doesn't share information and doesn't really help anybody else achieve their goals. And you're certainly someone who does do that. So I want to thank you on behalf of all of us who've benefited from the things that you've shared, and just the inspiration factor too, especially for older guys like myself who, you know, John didn't give up. I'm not going to give up either. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that, man. Tell all the guys at MD I said hi. I'm not really on there much anymore. I'm running around too much, but tell the guys I said hi, and I certainly appreciate the interview.
Cool. Well, we thank you. I thank you so much for doing this interview. Appreciate it. So for the Ronline Report, this has been Ron Harris with the Mountain Dog, John Meadows.